Alright, I'm back and I'm not really supposed to be here right now. This is my look of disappointment look. Damn it! Man, I got all my chores. Not my chores, I got all the chicken fence all done yesterday, put up. Bunch of other stuff. And then finally, the last couple hours in the evening, I cross-eyed tired. I got all my fishing gear out. I tied up about 15 new leaders. Put all my hooks in a little hook container. Leaders properly. Got all the gear I wanted to try out. Got my rods ready to go. Cameras ready to go. The batteries charged up. My new 360 underwater camera all ready to go. Learned how to do that. Got the app and everything. Last night, got the dog hyped up. We're going to go steelhead fishing for the first time this year this morning. And just made it to the gas station. Saw my rear left brake are almost on fire. I'm like, ah, shit. Turned around, dragged our sorry asses home. Oh, here I am. Another project to do today, right? Maybe tomorrow. I don't even know what the weather is tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow. But anyway, I have a special little treat for everyone. Yesterday is the very first time I brought up the topic of these forest people on my social media. I posted that guy's fishing. The footprint was boop-sided. I just posted it on my channel, my Instagram channel, and all I said was, so, you steelhead fishing one winter and you come across a line of these suckers with a 6-foot stride. You gonna tell anybody? That's all I said. And holy shit, did it go off. And I'm going to show you why I don't talk about this to people and why I don't promote it. You'll get a clear understanding when I read this exchange. And sometimes, I got to reel myself in because I'm a natural born fighter. That's all there is to it. I am naturally have it in me to fight to the death. Don't know what, well, that probably came from my ancestry, I'm guessing. But anyway, but I mentioned to you guys earlier when a long time ago, used to be on a popular, at the time it was popular, I don't even know if it's popular anymore, but it was just a local hunting forum. I don't even know if there's still forums for British Columbia. Everybody's on there. The Ministry of Environment was on there. All the game wardens, the native bands are on there. All the hunters, trappers, everybody's on there. And I was one of the biggest mouthpieces on there. And it actually is funny. At one time, all of the threads that I started were the most watched and listened to watched threads in the history of the forum. By the way, well before this all became what it is. I think even before I even had a YouTube channel, maybe. But anyway, somebody brought up the topic of Sasquatch on that forum. Started a thread, so you start a topic, and then everybody can go in there and comment and go back and forth. And I'm watching this, and there's guys actually getting the guts up to say, hey, I've seen it. I've seen this, I've seen that. And then, of course, you got your, call them flat out, douchebags who'd instantly shit all over them. And then here I come, right? And for me, when it comes to the fight, I'll be the last guy standing. If I got to come back tomorrow or the next day, I'll keep coming back till I'm the last guy standing. And I'm going to get the last word in. That's all there is to it. When I feel it's important, right? And this is important. So I got into this one guy, and he just wouldn't shut up. And I'm like, it was kind of amusing for me in a way because I know that I'm not going to stop. I will get the last word in. I'll make it so it's exhausting. I'll make it so that he can't even stand to see my name come up in that screen. He's going to go away. But there's no way anyone's going to call me a liar, shame me into changing my experience, shaming me into hiding, shaming me to shut up. There isn't a human being big enough. It's not going to happen. So when I do, back, over the course of years, I don't give a shit. Let's bring it on, man. Let's go. Right? You get older, a little wiser. And you just realize, all right, you know what? Humans, like I said earlier, humans are something else to watch. in this lifetime, right? So I'm gonna share with you guys the volley that one guy in particular decided to come on to me, and I'm gonna show you guys so you guys can see how I carry myself and how I speak when it comes to somebody saying, "There's no proof, you're a liar." All right, this just went down. It's still going down, I think. I don't know. We'll see. So I posted up the footprint. This one, remember? Posted that up. And I said, "You steelhead fishing in British Columbia and come across a line of these with 6 feet in between each one. You going to tell anyone?" That's all I said. And it went bonkers. What do we got here? 1,500 people all hit the like button, I guess. And, hold on, where are we here? How do you even tell the actual traffic on this damn thing? 574 people shared it. 144 comments and 1,400 hit the like button. And it just posted last night. So I'm going to share with you the volley, right? This will be a little special treat for this morning to get going. Now, where was this one? There was a lot of hunters came forward and said, "I seen this, I seen that." Guys I know said, "I seen this," and I don't go there anymore. I'm like, oh, holy shit, here we go again, right? But then we got, it's going to take me a second. I got to scroll down. There's so many comments. I'll find it. I'll find it. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Get ready. Get ready for this. So this one guy who used to have, I think he had like a couple 100,000 followers on a channel before it got deleted for some reason. His channel handles Busy Wild 2.0. And he commented, and I caught the comment and I decided to reply. He said, "Do you think a trail cam would have caught one by now?" He says, "Don't you think a trail cam would have caught one by now?" So I replied and I said, "Well, I've seen the firsthand. I never asked to, and I'm not into it. But I have close to 30,000 accounts emailed to me to date, and I have a clear video of one that's not able to go public yet." I go, "They're not an animal, and our trail cameras just aren't good enough tech to catch them." There's a lot to the topic, a lot, and it's definitely not for everyone, but this shit's very, very real. The knowledge known to date is off the chart. And then your typical, I don't even know how to categorize these people, but here's a guy, he calls himself bow hunting something. He's a hunter. And he replies to me and he goes, "This comment's hilarious. Not good enough tech to catch them. No remains ever. No real pictures or video ever. And always some guy who says, 'I have proof, but I can't share it yet.'" And then he put like 5 or 6 of those little laughing face emoji things. So for me, and I guess sometimes you catch me at the right time, right? And then I'm like, all right, here we go. And because there's so many people are watching this right now, right? And I'm like, okay, no, nobody's gonna win this fucking shitty. It's not gonna happen. Listen. So I replied and went, "Oh, you're scared." I go, "My best friend was too scared to accept it as well." I go, "You haven't looked into it for 5 seconds. There's over 128 DNA samples alone. Hundreds of photos, dozens of video, tens of thousands have seen them, including me." I go, "Unfortunately for you, people are actually smirking at you. The cat's out of the bag. Just because you can't handle it doesn't mean it's going away. You're actually maybe lucky you haven't had the unexpected slap of reality out there yet." And then he goes, "Scared?" with a couple of laughing emoji faces. "At least you're funny. More talk and still no proof." So I replied, all right, I'm in now. I'll be getting the last word in. And I said, "I'll guarantee you the reality scares the shit out of you 100%. There's 2 choices the brain can make. Number 1, take an honest person seriously and ask them with interest about what they saw. Or number 2, laugh, show 0 interest, and claim there's 0 proof." I said, "Take note. No one cares if you accept it or not. And equally, no one will go out of their way to show you. If your brain was actually curious, you would have looked into it. And in about 20 minutes, you would find the answers. Good luck either way. Hope you don't actually have to deal with it. It's not a fun life sentence. Then he came at me again. He goes, I have looked into it many times. Never found an ounce of proof and still haven't found any here. Believe what you want. I believe in God. Some people don't. Teach their own, I guess. So then I said, it's not a belief. That thing was 15 yards from me staring at me. I've guided big game all over BC and the Yukon for over 20 years, and I know what it wasn't. It's not a knowing. It's a knowing. It's not a belief. And if you looked into it, you would have found the facts. You never looked. Seriously. I'll guarantee I didn't wake up one morning and say to myself, gee, I wonder what the fuck I should make up today and tell people, because I really need the attention. I know. I'll tell everyone I saw a 600 to 700 pound human-like thing staring at me from 15 yards while solo bow hunting. Said fucking no one ever. If it's attention I needed, I'd just post up video of sticking arrows in stone rams again, or shooting grizzly bears, etc. And these fuckers are as real as taxes. It ain't going away. You think a lifelong big game guy's lying, seeing things? You're very wrong. And then there's the over 30,000 plus other honest people who have come forward reluctantly. I'll tell you what, an honest man shares truth with you. You're probably better off to listen and learn. Hold on, then a few other people chimed in, but I'll stick to what me and him said here. And then just an hour ago he goes, again, a lot of words with no proof. Let me scroll down here. And then I'm thinking, all right. So I go, so what, you call me a liar? And then he goes, what do you call someone who talks a big game but doesn't have any proof to back it up? You're exactly the same as every other Bigfooter's real guy. All talk. If he's real, break it to the world. Sounds like you're the one who's scared. So, of course, I come back again. And it's actually, it's a waste of time, but why not? There's a big audience. And as long as I show confidence and stand defiant, then everybody else will have confidence, right? So I said, well, you know what? I do around 250 days a year in the bush, hunting, as well trapping wolves, solo. Oh, I guess is scared as fuck the whole time too, right? And you do know that DNA isn't a rock band, right? But I guess if you did the looking, you would have seen the scientific study of the DNA samples already, right? So, due to you, quote, already looking into it, end quote, you could probably tell the class the name of the scientist who performed the study, right? Also the law officer's name who obtained and submitted many of the samples, right? Because you already looked into it, right? There's dozens of video, including numerous thermal video, which can't be faked, available as well. Yet, you already knew that because you already looked into it, right? And then I close with, your lane keeps you safe and comfy. Probably best to stay in it. This topic isn't for you and many others. Probably lucky it isn't. And there's no man big enough to shame me into staying quiet or changing my story. Not a chance. As I said earlier, once you get this fact slapped in your face without asking for it, the rest of the human herd gets real dumb real quick. And then here's a weak reply. He just replied, you proved my point. Every time you reply, lots and lots of words and zero proof. Like I said, at least you're funny. Right? Whew. Right over his head. Right over their head. So, and then I think there's like two other guys chimed in saying, oh, just go away, these stupid Bigfooters. But anyway, aside from that, but what I would like to show as an example of that exchange with somebody whose brain just can't. They can't, their brain will not and cannot go there. And one of the easier things to point out, which backs that statement I just shared up, is you got a guy, say like me, or hundreds of other guys like me and gals, who spend their life growing up in the middle of frickin' nowhere, right? I can back it up. I've got the receipts of my outdoor career, my history. You get somebody like that, looks you square in the eye and says, you wouldn't believe what was sitting there on that rock staring at me. Now, your average, what I like to call, I don't know, independently firing brain is going to go, what? What did you see? Tell me about this. Right? Shouldn't that be your average reaction for your average human mind? Now follow me. Without just going off and insulting people and getting mad. But I'm dead serious. This is very, very interesting to me. So you're going to have a handful of brains will react and go, huh? You saw what? Tell me about what you saw. Right? But then you're going to have another brain, and a lot of them, that absolutely go like this. They will instantly go to, oh boy, here we go. Another one. There's no proof. Isn't that really weird? Don't you think that's really odd? I mean, that mind, like this guy's mind, his mind can't register that a man who hunts, and this guy's a hunter too, is guided, who's been paid big dollars for people to trust me and pay me because they have confidence in me, taking them in the middle of frickin' nowhere, keeping them safe, and finding them what they want. Right? You should probably listen to that guy. And your mind instantly cannot go to that man. Wait, whoa, wait a minute. Tell me what you saw. What did you see? What happened? Do you know what I mean? Isn't it really frickin' bizarre how many human minds don't go there even a tiny bit? It's so weird. I know I'm not the best word slinger in the world trying to explain my point thoroughly here, but it's just so bizarre. It's almost as if they are pre-programmed, or there's another entity between their ears that goes, oh, don't listen to this. Just laugh. Don't listen to this. You just make sure you instantly laugh, shrug it off, and yell out there's no proof, and carry on. Put the blinders on. You see what I'm getting at? Isn't it weird? And I'm not curious about this guy. I don't need to win this person over. I don't need to win anybody over. I don't need to convince anybody, because years ago I became very aware that there is a very large amount of human mind, souls, whoever these people are and however they were created and built, something's missing, or something's intentionally placed between their ears. Don't you think? And it's alarming to me. Because when you get somebody whose mind reacts like that, holy shit, you can get them to do anything. Right? Don't you think? You can get that mind to do anything. On the side. Not on, like, I don't mean anything as in taking this as I mean, you can, that is a mind that cannot think rationally, cannot open up, cannot ask questions. It just goes on automatic program, like, hope I'm making sense. But there you go. There's your special treat for this morning. So you see how direct example of how I'll engage with a human being. Actually, you know what? I'm going to get the last word in right now, all right? Just hold on a second. That's all. I got to stop doing this. It's like beating a dead horse with a stick. But I'll show you. I'll share my closing, and then we're done. I'm going to get some voices. Close with, because I'm such a dick. So I guess this means you're not going to share with the audience the name of the world-renowned scientist who did the numerous DNA studies then? Or share with us the results? Because you, quote, already looked into it numerous times, end quote. Right? And I guess you're not going to share the name of the officer who submitted the numerous DNA samples either. Because you, quote, looked into it already and found zero proof, end quote. Right? Pretty sure it's clear who's funny now. I guess this easily confirms one of two things, or both. Number one, you never looked into shit because it scares the shit out of you. Or, two, you're flat out lying that you, quote, looked into it, end quote. And oh wait, here, I'll place a few of these examples of higher intelligence to close too. And then I put a bunch of those little laughing emojis. And I went onward. But I did say, if you ever do catch up one day, the door's open. Society has a pissload of knowledge available today. Head in the hole, or listen and learn. There you go. There you go. And I don't think he's a very lit up a bright bulb, so he's probably going to reply with something stupid again, but that's okay. I'm done. I've closed my point. He's shown the audience that he never looked into shit, he doesn't know anything, and it scares the shit out of him. But it scares a lot of people, right? And I've tried to give everybody that comfort or confidence in knowing that when people laugh, they're scared. When they don't ask questions and they laugh, they're really scared. Prove me wrong. There's nothing funny about somebody telling somebody, while they're pale as a ghost, eyes wide as saucers, hair on end, that they've seen something terrifying in the woods. Yeah, that's pretty funny, right? Comedians use that on the stage all the time because it creates such uncontrollable laughter. All it does is create fright. That's it. And you can deal with it, you can't. Now, I have a story for you, Steve, as a title to email. Hi, Steve. I've been watching your channel for over a year now and have decided to finally send in my story because I honestly can't think of a better person to share it with. That's kind. I think I read this, though. Maybe, maybe not. My first experience is about 4 years after I moved across my small town of Ooltewah, Tennessee, here in the States. So back in 2003, I was delivering newspapers in my local area. And I had to wake up early and be at the newspaper place to pack and load my papers in my car at 3 a.m. Me and a buddy of mine were out on my delivery route delivering papers, and we always stopped at the same spot to take papers from the trunk and place them into the back seat for easy access to finish the route at about the halfway mark. The halfway mark we stopped at was down a dead-end road that ended at a fence to a field, and the field went on for about 100 to 150 yards. Then hit into the forest. So one night my buddy was with me, and we were stopped in that spot at 4 a.m., maybe 4:30. And we heard what sounded like a woman being murdered out in the woods. Sent chills down my spine. And we looked at each other for a split second and both jumped in the car and took off. Now, at the time, I didn't think much about it. Thinking maybe it was a mountain lion or just a homeless person screwing with us. Thank God it wasn't a woman being murdered. So fast forward 12 years after, not really hearing anything else. The scream was less than a mile from my house, or around the 1 mile mark. And at this time in 2015, I was married, and me and my wife would go out and smoke. We used to hear weird noises in the woods and hear what sounded like footsteps almost every night, to the point I was convinced some homeless person was staying in the woods across the road or close by. We separated after a couple of years, and in April of 2018, I was here by myself, and the power went out one night because of some storms rolling through the area. I fell asleep waiting for the power to come back on and woke up right exactly at 3 a.m. and I'll never forget what happened next. I grabbed my flashlight, went outside to smoke a cigarette, and stepped outside with my light on and shined it across the road in the pitch black of the night when my light caught huge green eyes about 10 feet off the ground in a little clearing. Now to the left of the woods across from my house, the woods cut out into a small clearing where there was 3 trees scattered 30 feet from each other. This was not something in a tree. I know that much because my flashlight is a 1400 lumen LED light. And I've seen 8-point bucks over there in that clearing before at night eating grass, and you can see the entire deer, color and all. Now this thing was jet black to the point I couldn't even make out an outline of what I suspect to be one of these beings. The whole time I was outside smoking, from the time I spotlighted this thing and saw its eyes that looked as big as golf balls from 40 yards away, it never even blinked or looked away for the whole 5 to 7 minutes I stared at it. It seemed as though I surprised it as it was trying to come close to the other houses down the road in the pitch black darkness with the power being out. And probably was curious as to why the lights were out, because that night the power was out for 9 hours, from 11 p.m. until 8 a.m. The power finally came back on. My last encounter was 7 months later on Thanksgiving Day, when my brother was in town from Pennsylvania. We had eaten dinner and sitting around talking, and once again I decided to step outside on my front steps and smoke. I've been out there a few times, and at 8 p.m. it was already dark out. And all of a sudden, I hear some kind of ruckus in the woods. I grabbed my 1400 lumen flashlight again, that was sitting inside next to the door, and shined it across the road into the woods and saw not one but 2 sets of the same green eyes. One was crouched down, sort of like a human would crouch, and it looked up at me just like a person would. It was so creepy. The second one walked away to my right as to try to take my attention off the one that was crouched and kept looking forward, then back at me. It really reminded me of how, in the Patterson film, how Patty walked and kept turning its head around, back at the camera. Just exactly like that. And I could barely make out an outline this time, and they both looked to be on two legs. The one walking to the right walked about 20 feet before I noticed a car was coming, and the car lights shined right on the crouched one. So I know for sure whoever that was in the car also saw at least one of the two that I saw. But when the car showed up, I turned my light off so it wouldn't look like I was trying to shine it at cars to be a dingus. A dingus. So these are my sightings. Even though I saw mostly eye shine, I believe what I saw was one of these Sasquatch beings. To me, it's the only logical explanation. I went and looked across the road because at first I thought there were two smaller young adults. But then I saw there was a 2-foot drop-off where they were standing. So by my estimation of two I saw together, was shorter than the first one at 7 to 8 feet tall. I used to watch the show Unsolved Mysteries when I was a kid in the 90s, and I've always believed in extraterrestrial life 100%. And the Bigfoot thing, I could see how that was possible now. Back then, I was a kid. I was on the fence about Bigfoot because I spent so much time in the woods back then that I thought I would have seen one, if there was one to be seen. But now I know they can watch/follow you without you ever knowing. I believe wholeheartedly in what you're doing, trying to get the truth out there to people who need to know. I also believe there are a handful of people on this earth who know more than the population has ever forgotten. Because we have forgotten too much. We need to get back to the old ways of doing things and help our neighbors like we used to. This may not be the best story to share, but if you want to share this on your video, feel free to. And thank you for what you're doing. Sincerely, Paul from Tennessee. There you go, Paul. Shared, my man. Appreciate you big time. Big time appreciate you. There's so much going on in Tennessee. Yeah, I don't. This group right here, obviously, we're not about trying to prove shit to anyone. Like I said before, this isn't about the people right now that scream there's no proof or they need proof. They're speed bumps for us. Excuse me, I just ate. Again. All there is, I just call them speed bumps. They just slow you down and get in your way. It's a waste of time. Keep smashing. We are the group of people that are smashing forward, right? Smash forward, get everybody heard, get the patterns out, and figure the shit out. That's why I said in closing that guy, hey man, the doors, if you decide to catch up with us one day, the door's open. Right? But we're smashing forward without your ass. You know what I mean? No time. We're not about trying to prove anything. It's been proven. A long time ago, it's been proven. Now, Sasquatch incident. It's title of this email. Hi, Steve. You're a really good friend of mine. Is a big Sasquatch guy. We played in a band together 25 years ago on the island. We both grew up on the island as well. And he's a big fan of your YouTube vids. Because him and I are tight and he's a believer, I shared with him an experience I had with a childhood friend near Sprout Lake. Summertime, super hot day, on a logging road that runs parallel to and above the Pacific Rim Highway. Returning to the campground after a hike up to Ward Lake. Right up the road. He suggested I reach out to you. My other friend and I were around 12 to 13 years old, and he had his dog with him. And as I've always been a believer as well, if we'd just seen the Bigfoot cross the road, we would have reported it, told our parents, taken the disbeliever heat, no issue, just a sighting. But it was more than that. There is a lost time component to it as well, like an hour, which we cross-verified later that night as we were both wearing watches and always timed our hikes. Plus, we had to be back at the campground to have dinner with our families. Check in, that kind of thing. It was really, really weird. Plus, every time we tried to probe the lost time in our minds, we'd get this almost debilitating icy chill. I still get it to this day, almost 40 years later. Like we're programmed to not go there in our minds. Right? So we made a pact at the time to not tell anyone because we didn't want to be labeled lunatics. Since then, I've told maybe 3 other people. Anyway, I'm not looking for publicity or free therapy, lol. I'm fine, just a regular business guy, normal life, other than being a trophy trout junkie, catch and release. But my drummer pal told me you cited another BC Sasquatch incident on your channel that also had a lost time component, which was encouraging to hear. And I thought you might be interested in my incident and maybe shed some light on it. There was clearly a Sasquatch-type creature on the road. After his dog freaked out just before it came out, it looked at us. And then lights out for almost an hour. And we came to in a huge culvert we'd used to cross under the highway to get back to Sprout. All right, I read this a long time ago, and I do not mind reading this again because I was actually trying to remember this one a while back, so I'm thinking about going for a walk up that lake. Sorry, let me read that sentence again. It looked at us, then lights out for almost an hour, and we came to in a huge culvert we used to cross under the highway to get back to Sprout. That was 5 minutes away from where we were on the logging road when we saw it looking at us. The weirdest thing that ever happened to me, and despite a handful of near-death experiences, after that commercial and sport fishing for springs and halibut on the west coast, is the only memory, or absence of memory, that still, almost 4 decades later, still sends an icy chill up my spine when I try to probe the lost time portion. If you're interested, feel free to circle back for more details and a map diagram I did for my Sasquatch buddy. Congrats on your channel success, and I hope your guiding business is going well. Cheers from Calgary. Did I read that? Yeah, I did read that. I remember the culvert part. I don't think it'd be too hard for me to find that culvert or the road. Not that I need to go get me a slice of missing time. For all I know, I've had it already. Who knows? What's up with that? So many people lose time, right? Lots of time. And then my brain just shot back to our good friend Kelly Dan in Mount Currie, whose buddy was walking down the trail ahead of his friends, and all of a sudden, boom, he's getting up off the ground on the trail behind his friends. Isn't that weird? How's that happening, right? How are those monkey gorillas doing that shit? Next, it was pissed off. Is the title of this email. Hi, my name's Eric. I live in Chesapeake, Virginia, on a 1,000-acre piece of property. I'm 51 years old. I've hunted and fished all my life. The area I live in is very rural, but only a few miles from the coast. We live right off the Intercoastal Waterway in an area called Blackwater. The only thing that I've ever been afraid of in the woods are mosquitoes, lol. We have lots of deer, bobcats, coyotes, bear, and a good number of turkeys. To be able to pay taxes on our land, we have a small hunting club, only around 10 people. We like to keep it small. And about 11 years ago, I had 3 Rottweiler dogs. And those dogs weren't scared of anything. They've even run bear clean off our property or up trees. That's important. I'll get back to that. And around the year 2009, I had 2 new hunters come out to the property. They both killed deer that day. I wasn't at home, and they didn't know where we disposed of the carcasses after processing the meat. They threw the remains in a ditch about 200 yards behind my house. My wife was not happy about that, but it is what it is. I figured the coyotes would clean it up. And a couple days later, I was getting ready for bed. I always let the 3 dogs out to go to the bathroom. And about 5 minutes later, I went out to my deck and called the dogs. They weren't coming. I could hear them barking back in the woods behind the house. It was kind of a different bark, like they were scared. All 3 dogs came running out of the woods into our backyard. They stopped about halfway between the tree line and the house, which was about 80 yards from me. They would run almost to the wood line and then back barking and growling. I thought to myself, it must be a big bear. I turned on the floodlights for the backyard and looked in our pasture next to the house. I could see our horses in the pasture to my right, all standing side by side with their eyes bulging out, looking straight into the woods. And then I hear this growl. It was so loud that my wife heard it inside the house and came outside. It sounded like it was around 200 yards away. And believe me when I tell you it was no bear growl. It almost sounded like like a gargling growl. It made the hair on my body stand straight up. My wife went inside and came back out with the 2 shotguns. I started calling the dogs to get them back up on the deck and in the house, thinking that this bear would hear me and run off, but it didn't run off. It was coming closer and growling and screaming at us. And as it got to the edge of the wood line, which is about 80 yards away, I told my wife, "That's no bear." At this point, we're not thinking Sasquatch. The way this thing was coming, it could not see me on the deck because I have a barn that would obstruct its view. So it continued coming closer and screaming louder. Man, this thing was pissed off. I figured right away whatever it was eating on those deer, and the dogs went back there, and disturbed it. Because of the floodlights in my yard, this thing went behind my barn and up the driveway. And it's going to come out about 30 yards from me, near my carport. This thing just would not stop coming. It was not scared of the dogs, and it was not scared of me, and finally it got to where it could see me, still screaming at me with that gurgling growl. It was in the woods, and I could not make out any features, but after doing some research, I believe that it saw me on the deck with a shotgun, and at that point, all the growling stopped, and it disappeared into the woods. And that's not the end. About 2 weeks later, in the middle of the night, maybe around 2 a.m., my wife wakes me up out of a dead sleep, and she says, "Eric, it's in the backyard." This thing was in our backyard, screaming at us again, as if to say, "You didn't scare me off, these are my woods." Man, I don't know what kind of animal does that. Kind of like it held a grudge or was still pissed off. The dogs wouldn't even go near the door. I turned on the floodlights again, and the horses were all the way up near the road, pushed together side by side, staring right at whatever it was. After about 5 minutes, it finally stopped. This thing has never come back since, and we've never heard the sounds again. Has anyone else ever had an experience like this? I'd like to know. Sorry for being long-winded, but I had to tell somebody who doesn't think I'm crazy. The handful of people that I've told either think I'm crazy or lying. Thanks, Eric Thibault. Thibault. Hope I didn't butcher your name, Eric. That sounded really familiar, the going behind the barn thing. Didn't we just read something very similar? Regardless. Yeah, lots of people have had that happen. Lots. These are all in the older inbox where I tried searching the other day, and I copied and pasted a whole bunch that were marked as unread. This is titled, "Tell My Story." I'm going to share my story. From when I was 11 or 12 years old, almost 45 years ago, I've shared this story with my family and friends in just weird looks as a response. I do not really care if anyone believes me or not. I tell my story. People can take it however they choose. Anyway, here it goes. I'm an avid outdoorsman. I hunt, trap, and fish since I was 9 years old. There isn't anything I really haven't seen or experienced with regard to the outdoors where I come from, which is Western MY. I think he meant NY. Western New York. When I was growing up, I was a kid who left the house in the morning at first light, didn't get home until dusk. That was me, too. I was one kid who hunted heavily with a pellet rifle. If it walked or crawled, it was game, and anything I could catch became my pets. I would explore the woods and build lean-tos out of old dead trees and other ground cover, so I always carried knives and hatchets. One day, I took my cousin out with me. There's a few typos, but nothing too serious. We went on a small lot of trees and wanted to find something to chop down. So we looked around and found an old dead standing tree. Yes, I was knowledgeable enough not cut down healthy trees. Anyway, we started chopping the tree. And after about 15 minutes, we heard a commotion in the leaves. This caused us to look in the direction of a dark figure approaching us. At first, this figure was on all fours like a bear. But as it approached closer, it stood on 2 legs and continued closer. This scared us and caused us to start running back on our path toward home. And as we continued, we thought we lost it. When we reached the road, we started walking the road, which had 2 cornfields parallel, with a hedgerow down the middle, approximately 150 yards from the road. for about a quarter mile to a small tree, for about 1/4 mile to a small stream. We looked over at the hedgerow and noticed the dark figure paralleling us as we walked. It did this until we reached the creek. Anyway, we made it home without any additional sightings. This left a lot of questions through my life. What was it? Was it a man? If this was true, why would he have not just yelled out to us? And why would he creepily follow us that far? If it was a bear, I don't think he could have walked that far on his hind legs. I've tried to talk to my cousin about it, but he just refuses to talk about it. Blinders. I may be different than others sharing stories with you, in that if it happened again, I would actively pursue it. And if necessary, would have one of these in the back of my truck. Tom from New York. All right, Tom, if you're still here, man, appreciate the email, and don't do it. Don't do it. Don't shoot at one of these people unless you are being directly threatened. Don't do it. It'd probably be the last thing you do. One of them. Trail cam pics. Here we go. Steve, my name is Jeff McComas. I'm an honorably discharged Navy veteran and a grandfather of 15. I'm 53 years old now, and in those 53 years, I've seen and learned a lot. In 1986, while deer hunting in what is now the Wayne National Forest in southern Ohio, I saw what I'm pretty sure was a female Sasquatch, and she was carrying a little one. It's the second day of whitetail season. That year, I decided to go to what I called a honey hole, where I knew that a couple of big bucks had been making a ruckus. I got to my stand really early that morning, and it was still dark. So I leaned back in the tree and was resting my eyes. All of a sudden, I heard a really solid buzzing sound. I thought it was a large hornet's nest that hadn't gotten cold enough for the hornets to leave. Well, as daylight started to break, I caught a movement out of the corner of my eye. And as I focused on it, I could make out a hair-covered, bipedal creature bending down at one of the old strip mine ponds that were there. I watched her, giving the small one water. Either that or she was cleaning it. She never looked my direction. And as fast as she appeared, she disappeared. Now every day I think of that encounter and I try to tell myself that it was something else, but it was what it was, a Sasquatch. There's no punctuation, by the way. I'm doing pretty good. No punctuation. I think of that encounter and try to tell myself that it was something else. But it was what it was, a Sasquatch, and nobody can make me believe any different. Okay, there's my story. And here's something extra. Yesterday, my daughter sent me some trail cam pics that my son-in-law had gotten, and he is hunting in the same general area that my encounter took place, way back in '86. And well, as I'm looking through these pictures, I notice a face. Now, it may be pareidolia, or it may be an actual creature, but I know that you don't analyze photos, but please, shoot me an email back and tell me what you think. Feel free to use my name and this photo. Thanks for listening and making this topic easy to discuss. Keep up the good work, and God bless Jeff. Okay, when I clicked on it, it actually went tinier on the phone. So let's throw it on the screen and blow it up. See what you're looking at. Yeah, I don't know, man. I wasn't there. It looks like it could be something, but the only thing you can do is check out the time on that camera, and then maybe the time of year, the time, and then duplicate it with somebody standing there. See if that image is still there, and what it would look like if a human being was put in the exact same spot. It's about all you can do, really, right? There you go. Appreciate the share, man. Now, also, so what I have to do when I take the photos from here, I know I'm not the tech guy. Everything's self-taught with me. I never had anybody teach me how to do anything when it comes to computers, video, nothing. Figured everything in life out myself. So anyway, what do? So I get the note saved to my phone, and then I see a photograph, and then I click on the photograph, and I got to save it into Dropbox because for some reason, when I plug my phone into my laptop, it doesn't show all the photos. Anyway, so I have to save the photo to Dropbox, and then I got to crack open Dropbox on here, and I have thousands of pictures and videos in my Dropbox. That being said, I came across another photo in there, and I absolutely apologize to whoever emailed it in. If you want to email in to me or comment in the comment section below and claim it as yours. Now I gotta get out of here for a second and load this into here so we can see it. All right, let's have a look here. It's a lot, isn't it? Mathematically correct to be a face of something, though, isn't it? So whoever sent this to me, I apologize. I don't have your email with it. So maybe resend it to sharemystory@howtohunt.com, okay, if there's a story behind it. And as well, another suggestion would be for whoever the original photographer is, however this is captured, duplicate that photo, same time of year, same conditions, and put a person there. And see what you come up with, right? Interesting though, right? Don't know what that is. All right, here we go. Here's another one. Dear Steve, my name's Darren. Feel free to use my name. The story. And then that's the title of the email. Dear Steve, my name's Darren. Feel free to use my name. The story I'd like to share with you happened to me when I was 14 in Victoria, Australia, in a place called Dalesford in around 1985. Every summer, my father and I, my best friend and his dad, would head out there for a couple of weeks of hunting and fishing. We mainly hunted for rabbits using ferrets. No shit. That'd be kind of bizarre. To us, to me up here, we don't do that up here. I didn't even know you could do that. This particular day, our fathers went off to do their thing while my friend and I decided to spend the day fishing for trout. We were told not to go too far, but boys being boys, we thought we'd venture further into the woods than we were allowed. Along the way, we ventured into a cave and that kind of thing. By the time we reached the river, it was already around midday, and being summer here in Australia, the temperature was already nudging 40 degrees Celsius. Ugh. We spent most of the afternoon getting sunburnt, not catching anything. It was around 4 when we decided to head back to camp. We thought it'd be a good idea to take a different route to the way we'd come, so as to see some new sights. We had to climb a pretty large rocky embankment to get into the woods again, but as it wasn't too steep, it wasn't too difficult, but still took some effort. In the heat with our rods and fishing gear was all the more difficult. As we were meandering our way through the dense woods, we could hear what sounded like a cow mooing off in the distance. I said to my friend, there must be a property not too far from here, as what would a cow be doing out in the middle of the woods? We were relieved, as we thought if there was a property we could ask for some water, but we were wrong. As we got closer to the sound, it no longer sounded like a cow. The only thing I can liken it to now is the wounded baby T-Rex in the second Jurassic Park. We had no idea what it was, so we made more effort to try and quieten our footsteps as the leaf litter on the forest floor was making a lot of noise. And as we got closer, it got louder and more terrifying. I remember saying to my mate, "What the F is that?" He just shrugged his shoulders. We walked a little further and closer to it, and at the same time we ducked in behind a big old tree as we could now make out a shape through the vegetation that was moving around. Then another scream that shook us to the core. I remember almost passing out as this sound rumbled through my entire body and chest, leaving me feeling dizzy. Again, I said to my mate, "What the F is that?" We crept a little closer, trying to be as quiet as possible. We got close enough now to see it in full detail from the back. And this thing was around 5 feet tall, solid, and covered in matted dark brown hair. The smell that was coming from it was so foul it was hitting my gag reflexes. I remember feeling so dry in the mouth from thirst, and were it not for an empty stomach, I'd have vomited. My mate asked me if it's a chimpanzee. I'm not sure, I said, as our brains couldn't fathom what it was. It was then we noticed its leg was stuck under a fallen log. It then let out another ear-piercing, body-shuddering scream to which something off in the distance responded with a loud whooping sound which seemed to calm it a little. We thought about trying to help it, but realized it's a wild animal, most likely a chimpanzee, which we thought would be too dangerous. At that moment, I knelt on a stick which made a loud crack. I looked up, and for the first time I saw its face. As the whole time it had its back to us, it was now staring straight in our direction. And this was no chimp, as its facial features were too human, / Neanderthal looking. The look on his face was utterly terrifying as it had clenched its teeth and let out an aggressive guttural growl, and began thrashing around in a struggle to set itself free. Before I could say, "F this, let's get out of here," my mate was off and probably had a 50-meter head start running back in the direction we come from. And I swear, when I got back to that rocky outcrop, I just about jumped down it in 2 leaps. I've never run so hard and fast, and my heart has never beat so quick. My lungs are on fire. By the time we got back to camp, my legs were so full of lactic acid I could barely stand. I was sunburnt and sick from thirst, and our dads asked us what we'd been doing, and before I could answer, my friend said, "Only fishing." We've never spoken of it since, and I've never told anyone for fear of ridicule. I suffered nightmares for years after this, always the same dream of it attacking me. Fortunately, they're only few and far between. Before this took place, I'd never heard of Bigfoot or a Yowie, and the thought of such a thing at the time here in Australia would have been ridiculous. I'm 49 now, and my health is failing from lung disease, and have finally worked up the courage to tell my kids and you about the day my life changed forever. When my kids ask to go camping, we always go to well-populated campsites, as this still affects me to this day. You can use my name. Please keep up the excellent work you and your wife do with this channel. Regards, Darren. Boom! Another life changed for its entirety. I hope you're still with us, man. I hope you beat that sickness. I'm sad to hear you have that. Stuck under a log. That's kind of odd, isn't it? It must have been a damn big log. Right? I mean, what a random freak accident. How the hell do you get something so powerful stuck? I guess it happens, right? It happens to elk. It happens to deer and bears. Cats, wolves even. I saw a video the other day of somebody walking up on a coyote that was pinched in a fallen tree and a broken branch, pinned it and killed it. Lots of elk, lots of bull elk get stuck under trees and killed. And they're pretty powerful animals. Okay, one more. Montana encounter. Hey Steve, my name's Sheridan. You can use my name. I've been watching a show for about 6 months now and finally decided to share one of my encounters with you. I'm a lifelong hunter and have hunted and killed every major predator in North America. The fall of 2009, I was hunting elk on the south side of the Big Snowy Mountains in Montana. I was glassing a valley from the edge of a ridge, about a quarter mile to the bottom of the valley, and a good mile across with dense brush, grassy area, and a mountain stream flowing through the bottom. At about 3 p.m., I noticed the brush moving around sporadically, a little more than halfway across the valley floor. I think I got lucky enough to have elk come in. I put my binoculars away and grabbed my rifle, 30-06 with a Leopold scope, and started scoping the brush. And after about 5 to 6 minutes, I seen the evil face of this creature. I was stunned. I could not believe what I was seeing. It wasn't 3 minutes more watching this thing, crossed the valley floor, and it stepped about a quarter mile from me, turned and stared right at me. As I was scoping it, it began to come straight at me. As I was 6 miles inland on foot, there was no way I could get away from this thing. So I squeezed off a shot in the air over top of it. It began running and closing the gap between us quickly. At this point, I reloaded and drew down on its chest and squeezed off another shot. It stopped dead in its tracks less than 300 yards from me, let out a blood-curdling scream, turned, and ran east out of the valley. Being a hunter, I sat still for about half an hour before walking down to the spot it stopped. I got nervous as I realized the brush he was towering over was 7 to 8 feet tall. Regardless, I took to tracking it. I tracked it all night with clear tracks and periodic blood. About 15 to 20 miles in the dark was not an ideal situation. About daybreak, I came across a rancher who was burning the bodies of 3 massive bulls. He said this creature was evil and that he had shot it 5 times with a .338 mag before it went down, and he burned it with the bulls. I was appalled. If I had to do it over, I would not have fired either shot. Use my name and experience if you like. Appreciate what you do. Keep up the good work. Peace. Boom. We definitely haven't heard that one before. Sheridan, you still hanging out here? Would there be any way of you maybe possibly talking to that man who allegedly dumped that sucker and burnt it up? And why was he burning bulls? What a crazy... I should say crazy. Well, everything's crazy to me. But what a holy shit detail chucked in there for all of us to go, huh? Whoa. Get a hold of that guy. I would absolutely love to hear that man's story, and I absolutely appreciate hearing yours. Dumped with .338, huh? Surprised he's still standing, especially if that other one's still running around. The one that you took a poke at. About who I would have done the same thing. If I had one of these people staring me down and they're coming at me, I'm doing exactly what you did. I'm going to rip one over its head. Right? If it's staring me down, looking at me through the scope of my rifle and goes, huh? Here I come. Whoa. No, I don't want you to hear you come. Get out of here. And yeah, I definitely probably... Well, I don't know. I don't know what I do. Really, I'm just trying to picture it right now. Trying to picture one of these people coming flying at me after seeing me scoping it. Now it decides it's going to run at me. How long are you going to wait? Well, no, I'd wait. I'd definitely sit there and try to figure out what's up, man. And top it off, only because of my grizzly bear experience, I'm not going to get in a fight unless it's absolutely necessary. And with bears, you don't just start flailing when they're far away. If it's going to go down, you wait. You get on your knee, you get level with them, and you wait, and then you let them have it. But what are you going to do, right? What are the terrain too? For me, would be a factor. Is it going to be wide open? If I let that thing coming at me, staring me down, running at me, if I let it run at me, is it going to be out of my sight for a while? And if it is out of my sight, how close will it be when it gets back inside of me? That's going to be a factor, too, of when I'm going to start to fight back. Or pick a fight. Or fight. Whatever's going down, right? I'm just trying to picture being there, man. If it's just nothing but space between me and an attacker, no matter what flavor attacker it is, I'm going to sit and wait. At 300 yards, I'm going to wait and see what you're going to do here. But if I'm really, my gut's screaming, I'm about to get offed, well, you started it first. I'm going to try to finish it, right? And then we're going to get some lethal shooting going down. I always have a big magnum. Always. Except when I'm deer hunting. But usually I have a 300 short mag with me. I used to pack 300 ultra mag. Still got it. Heavy gun. But super cannon. Anyway. There we go. Now, as you guys are listening to this one, which now I'm going to go out and dive out of my pickup and fix my brakes, get organized again, and that means I'm a day ahead now, so maybe, possibly, while you guys are listening to this, me and the Adventure Dog are on the side of the river, not being tormented by anything, filming steelhead, underwater, and maybe even being caught. And then we'll probably stop along the way if it doesn't piss and rain, and we're going to share some woods with you guys, and hear some more voices. There you go. I'll be back tomorrow.